Today, we've got several fun things going on. Actually, maybe I should start. Hey, Anne, should we start off with sharing that thing from yesterday? That thing. So I'm going to bring, and I'm about to make you a co-host. Boom. And
Hi.
so for folks who haven't met Anne yet, this is Anne Chadwick from Point Blue Conservation Science, which is an amazing organization that works on getting research and evidence to help us make better policy decisions for the conservation of wildlife, specifically crazy bird stuff. And wonderful organization. And we teamed up a little while ago. Do you want to tell people about the Mountain Meadow Project and what that was?
Yes. So Jack was nice enough to have us as his guest, have Point Blue Conservation Science as his guest on one of the nature journaling workshops on a Thursday. And we had our wonderful, what do I call him? He's like Indiana Jones. He's like an explorer and a scientist, and he lives up in the mountains and works on mountain meadow restoration for Point Blue, which is super important in terms of carbon sequestration and biodiversity and all kinds of good things. And so we wanted to make this really interactive. So we asked people from the Nature Journal community to draw and nature journal about mountain meadows and their importance in the ecosystem. So Jack has been good enough to put together a presentation that pulls together all of your work and also conveys the importance of mountain meadows. So I think we're gonna do a little preview of that. Is that
That's
right?
Right. We've got a little preview
Okay.
of Mountain Meadow. So all the pictures that you see, these are going to be used by people who are doing education about these meadow ecosystems. As public presentations and also to policymakers to help them see the value of these systems. So there will be a few tweaks in this. Also, all these drawings may end up, in various places in related publications and things. But I'm really impressed with what everybody put together. I was not able to use all of the drawings. But from what we had, we were able to pull from that a really useful set of things. And some of the drawings which are not involved in this presentation can also be used in other ways. So thank you again to the whole community for what you did. You guys want to see it? Well, let's take a look at some mountain meadows. So I'm going to be giving a little voiceover with the presentation, giving a small kind of condensed version of what, some of the things that we might be talking about. And we will be enjoying that. So here it is. So, dear friends, welcome to our Mountain Meadows presentation on behalf of Point Blue Conservation Science. Mountain meadows are amazing, beautiful, and rich systems that are nurseries for all sorts of life and an essential part of mountain ecosystems. In addition to that, these healthy systems help reduce things like floods and other problems downstream. So here I've got a comparison of two systems. On the right, we have a healthy mountain meadow system. If you just kind of glance around there, you see there's all sorts of critters running around and interacting as this stream comes winding down through the broad meadow. And on the left, we see a degraded meadow system. So this is a meadow system where things have gone wrong and are getting worse. And we're going to look at some of the mechanics behind that, and on also some of the services and wonderful things that these mountain meadow ecosystems provide. If we take a kind of a close look at this degraded systems waterway, what you see is that this creek cuts straight through the meadow, and this allows the creek to the water to get off of the meadow really, really quickly. In contrast to that is a healthy mountain meadow system, in which the stream is meandering, is winding and weaving back and forth. This takes its time. And just like you get better food through slow cooking, that slow water moving across the meadow allows the water to seep down into the ground and to recharge the water table. The degraded system on the left doesn't do any of that. That water hurries up, gets across the meadow, leaving the top of the meadow, the meadow with a lower water table and with a sort of dry habitats up above. This becomes even more dramatic when there's a big storm event. So let's take a look at what happens in a big storm event. In this straight channel, the water cuts down and builds a deeper trough for itself. So with every big storm, it cuts itself a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper. That means that the water down there has now gotten even further away from the material on the ground and the plants on either side, making it more and more of drought conditions up on top. Contrast that with what happens in a big storm event in a mountain meadow system. The water, instead of cutting down, it spreads out, shallow and wide. And in these stages, there's a tremendous additional amount of percolation into the ground. The water still goes through it slow. But these meadows also provide protection from flooding downstream. So in addition to flood control, it's this mountain meadow is acting essentially as a sponge. So when there's a big storm event, the water gets sucked up into the meadow, and then it's released slowly over much of the year. Again, on the left-hand side, what happens is that the water shoots through and makes the channel deeper, leaving everything drier. Now, the impact of this on carbon is really interesting. These dry soils release carbon into the atmosphere. Stored carbon is released as carbon dioxide from these drying and dry meadow systems. Contrast that with what goes on in our mountain meadow system, with a healthy system. It is a carbon capture system. These dark, damp, wet soils are a perfect place for holding, storing, capturing carbon from the atmosphere and storing it down into the soil in these rich mountain soils. If you look underneath, these mountain meadows are a tangle of roots and fibers and decomposed plant material. That's where the carbon is going. And so it's through these, the plants that are in abundance above the meadow are taking carbon out of the atmosphere and sucking that down into the roots, storing it underground. And as these plants die and decompose, that captured carbon remains in the soil. The general thing to think about ecologically here is that plants in this area are going to follow, the plants follow the water. So there are plants that are adapted to drought conditions, and those will appear in the degraded meadow systems. On the other hand, there is a huge diversity of plants that will survive around these upland, the healthy system. So let's take a close look at what you get in the plant department. So in a degraded system, there are a number of plants such as thistles and sagebrush that are adapted to desert conditions. And these will move into the meadows and take over. So they will become the predominant plant type. In addition to that, there are weedy species, invasive weeds such as spotted knapweed, that will also do very well in these degraded systems. So, but the overall diversity of species is lower, and their ability to capture carbon is nowhere near what it was. Contrast this with a healthy meadow system. Let's first talk about the trees that come in around this slow moving stream. So if you look into this little diagram here, you can see little clumps of willows and other plants along the way. Aspens and willows are a couple of the species that will that are in abundance in places like this. And these trees provide the habitat for all sorts of nesting birds. So this makes these mountain meadows into a springtime nursery for birds. Oh, so watch that nest there. The nests, there's in these willows and trees, it's wonderful habitat for hiding your nests. And so many migratory birds, neotropical migrants, among others, will come and spend their summers up in these high mountain meadows, and they need these ecosystems in order to survive. So there are many species of birds that you will find in these environments, and the rich density of growth along these streams, again, is just sort of the perfect nesting habitat for them. And this is also why Point Blue Conservation Science is doing so much work in mountain meadows, studying and researching the diversity of birds in these places, their survival, as well as their needs. So this is one of the sites where Point Blue Conservation Science is doing really amazing research. The plant diversity in these mountain meadows is really rich. There are many species of flowering plants that will bloom at different times throughout the season. So some are early season plants, some are late season plants. So throughout the summer in these mountain meadow systems, you can find all of these, there's always something blooming in these fields. And these then feed all sorts of pollinators. So there's wonderful insect life that you will find in these meadow systems, and as well as birds that come as pollinators. But pollinators are not the only animals that are using these systems. Mountain meadows will support a tremendous diversity of insects, spiders, and other creepy crawly critters that form the bottom level of critical food chains. So as you go exploring across these meadows, you will find lots and lots of species that many of which their habitat is really restricted to these areas. So these mountain meadow systems are essential for the survival of many mountain species. So too also with mammals. Of particular note are the beavers. Beavers are habitat architects. So if there is a stream system with good willows or aspen to eat, you can get beavers that will move into your area. And when they do that, they will make dams across the creeks, which further slow the water and increase the range of potential habitats, as well as give you even greater ability for that creek to recharge the groundwater table below. By slowing the water down even more can soak in and to these giant mountain meadow sponges. Some of the work that Point Blue Conservation Science team are doing are to create in degraded meadows artificial beaver dams that allow the some of the water table to recharge. But in these healthy natural systems, the beavers come in on their own, they do it themselves. So once you get your beavers in there, you've really got a wonderful system for maintaining these wonderful rich systems. But there are many other species that will then also use these both these sources of food for raising their families. So from bear to deer, you can find many species, other species of mammals in and around these systems. If you want to find wildlife in the Sierra, get yourself to a mountain meadow. To review, unhealthy, degraded mountain meadow systems are dry and they're actually a carbon source. There's no time for the water to soak in, and also they release carbon into the atmosphere. That contrasted with a healthy meadow system is a giant sponge that holds nutrients and water in the soil and provides habitat for all sorts of a really wonderful diversity of species. And Point Blue Conservation Science is doing the work to understand these systems, to protect existing meadow systems, and to restore degraded systems back into this vibrant, dynamic state. At this point, we'd like to ask if there are any questions. And if this was a live event, I'd be taking your questions right now. And want to send out special thanks and recognition to Point Blue Conservation Science and the volunteers from the Nature Journal Club who donated their work to celebrate and support the work of Point Blue Conservation Science. You can learn more at pointblue.org. I'm going to have one more slide. We're going to have all of your names. And what'd you think, Anne?
Fantastic. I love it. And what I really love about this is the crowdsourcing aspect, that so many people got involved, so many different styles, so much great information and understanding and caring. So really appreciate everybody's participation. And we will be using this and talking about this whole process and what a great creative endeavor and scientific endeavor it is. Couple of things. In California, so much of our water that we use for drinking and irrigating crops and so on comes from the Sierra. And by having healthy meadows, we are spreading out the time that the water is released. And as we get less snowfall, that is our reservoir up there, where it comes in the form of rain, and we need to really hold back that water for as long as we can. So both the timing and the quantity, but also the quality of water is also improved in a healthy meadow because it's a filtration system. And if the water can just filter through instead of rushing off in that, that I think that was Jasmine's graphic there that was so great, showing the water just rushing off the meadow.
I like the sort of splattering out, like brown water part. That was
right. Really,
there's so many there's so many beautiful little nuggets and pieces. I think that something else that people are going to see, that who are watching this, is they'll get a sense that this is part of a community effort, that putting this together. You can see that this is made by all these different people's artwork coming together to support and celebrate these things.
Absolutely. So I did see one question about how meadows get degraded, how the quality goes badly. And a lot of it's human intervention. So the meadow that is illustrated there is actually close to what's going on at Van Norden Meadow up in the Sierra, up by Donner Summit. And there's a road, there's a power line, there are trails and culverts, and there used to be sheep grazing there. And the goal was to get the water off the meadow as quickly as possible so you could get the animals on as quickly, not flood the railroad, not flood it's old Highway 66, I believe, the old Lincoln Highway that goes right through there. And so it was all human intervention and power lines. And the goal was to get the water off the meadow as quickly as possible. So a lot of what we're doing is actually learning from beavers how to restore the meadows. So we'll build these analog beaver dams that act just like the beavers would if we let them do their thing. And it spreads the water back out over the meadow, raises the water table, and does all that great work for biodiversity, plant life, bird life, insects, mammals, everything that Jack talked about there. So really exciting work.
Hey, and the work that you and Point Blue do, it's so beautiful. It is, we really need this kind of work more and more these days to allow us to sort of make decisions not based on our hunches, but based on evidence. And so you're not only just providing that information, but also really actively engaging in stewardship and conservation. So people can learn more about Point Blue's work at pointblue.org. And we're going to have, in future workshops, we're going to have more scientists on from Point Blue to talk with us about the work that they're doing and to kind of inspire some drawing and writing in our nature journals.
Yeah, and that's right. It's Old Highway 40. And I wanted to also mention, speaking of involvement, we do get the school groups out there. So we have a program called Students and Teachers Restoring a Watershed. The acronym is STRAW. And we've got students out there helping build those analog beaver dams, doing some restoration work, sprigging willows in the right places. So sort of restoring the whole watershed. And it's really exciting to see the students and the teachers getting involved and studying the science that, just helping us, again, crowdsourcing and getting community involvement is so important. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Anne. So what we're going to do now is we're going to jump into a little bit of um, some drawing strategies, and in honor of the Ukraine, what I'd like to do is to take a look at the national animal of the Ukraine, the nightingale. And we're going to do a little nature journaling workshop on the nightingale. And the nightingale is a kind of a thrush. It's a beautiful, sort of soft brown, sort of soft colors that blend into each other. And it has the lovely habit of singing whenever it wants. And the Ukrainian songs and folklore are filled with stories of the nightingale, and so we're going to spend a little bit of quality time with the bird ourselves. This will also help you draw any kind of a bird, especially a thrush. You're going to see that it's rather similar to Swainson's thrush or hermit thrush that we have in the United States, and this this little bird, I think you're going to have fun sketching it up. So let me, well, I'm going to prepare my screen here. And then what we'll do is, well, I'm going to do a split screen thing where on one side you're going to get to see the nightingale, the photograph I'm going to work from, and then on the other side we'll be taking a look at my my drawing pad. So let's rock it. And Aveda, we will do block diagrams. We will do block diagrams. Just not to, I saw that idea about the Ukrainian national animal, and I thought, you know, that's let's do that today. So let me share my screen, share my desktop with y'all, and there we go. Look at that. So on the right-hand side, there's my piece of paper, and on the left, these are nightingales, right? So generally, you're looking at a soft, muted brown bird. Now, subtle birds like these are hard to draw. And the reason that they are hard to draw, if you're drawing something like a Western tanager that has a bright red head, black and white wings, and a yellow tummy, you can get any proportions you want, and then people are going to look at it and go like, yeah, it's a Western tanager. Because just you get those colors in the right place, people will say, yes, that's a Western tanager, even if the proportions look nothing like a Western tanager. But if you're drawing something like a nightingale, which is this bird that's all about subtlety, at least in its plumage, then it is, let's see, hold on a second. Where are my settings? I want to turn this to I want to do a search for, nope, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. Huh. Usually I'm able to select out here just the large ones, but not today. Well, let's go back to this. So I'm going to view this image. There's a nightingale singing its little heart out. And so this is going to, we're going to make a sketch based on this, and it's going to teach us a few things about bird beak structure and and drawing any little subtle birds like this. Let's get ourselves a fresh piece of paper. And there we go. And now let's get Nightingale. If I were sketching this on my own, I would probably start with my non-photo blue pencil and block in that shape. But this pencil is so, because that's going to work great for me drawing, but the problem is that this pencil doesn't really show up on the camera that you're looking at. So I'm not going to do my preliminary drawing with my usual Prismacolor Kohl erase pencil. I'm going to be using this purple mechanical pencil here, a little bit of purple lead in it, because you will be able to see this. But this does make a mark that's a little bit bolder than I normally like. So let's pet the bird. Everybody pet the nightingale. What is the angle around the back of its head? Go out onto the slope of the back, and then the rump changes down. So you're going to pet the bird. You're going to feel like, okay, birdie, you've got your hold on. Oh, there. So your bird head, you're curving in, and then you're just get the angle of that back. And often if you look at the shape of the green air, that helps you get the shape of the green behind the bird, the negative shape back there. And then it turns down. So there's my shape of my back of my bird. That's a great way to start any little drawing. Now a little spacer for the head here. And the bird is looking up. That top beak is kind of going up about at an angle like this. I'm not going to worry about the lower beak. And now let's look at the angle on the underside of the head. It's coming down, and then look at it goes out to a sharp corner here. There, it's then going to come down. So this again, I'm looking at a negative shape. I'm looking at the shape of the air right in here. So I looked at the shape of the air here on the back. I looked at the shape of the air on the front. And then what I'm going to do is to into this space here, I'm going to just drop in a little ball as sort of the mass of the body of this bird. Give it a little bit of undertail coverts. And that has sort of blocked in roughly the silhouette, the shape of this bird. Now I can kind of modify it, maybe pull this head out a little bit further, make the head a little bit broader. Yeah, that'll do. Now the body here is in side view, the head is turned towards you just slightly. So I'm going to draw a line through the middle of the head. And I want to, so that if I had the skull of this bird over here, and the skull of the bird, it would look like this. And back here, this part here would be the lower jaw, and it would hinge back here behind its eye. And then there'd be an area of stretchy skin and tissue between those. So when this bird opens its mouth really wide, you get this. So beak, skin, skin, beak. And we're then looking at that from a 3/4 view angle. So we're seeing into that mouth of the bird. We're seeing on the top here, I'm drawing a little asymmetrical V. Then you're coming down on one side of the mouth and going down there. So on the other side of that mouth, you have skin and the size of the beak there. So I'm putting in the shape of the inside of the mouth, the shape of the inside of the mouth. and then give it a little bit of a beak, or a little bit of a top, a little bit of a bottom. And notice that these lines are coming into the side of the head. They're not ending here. Actually, this one on the top, you can't see it there, but I can. You want to think of that beak as inserting into the head. It is turned towards you slightly. Now, here is back of the bird. There's a lump pile here of what are called scapular feathers that are above its shoulder. The front of its wing comes down here, and then from a point about in here, the wing is coming back this way to a point above the tail. I want to look how far back the secondary feathers go. They go about to where the body is here. And then there's a long projection of primary feathers that sticks out there. So I'm looking at how long, where does this start? Where does it end? There's a zone in here that is covert feathers. How far down do these secondary feathers stick out? And how far do the primary feathers stick out behind that? There's a lot of what's called a primary extension from the secondaries to the there. So our tail here is going to be, you can think of it slicing into a pad of feathers above and below. And see the leg coming out at a forward-facing angle. I want to note where on the bird here, it's easy to get a leg that goes too long or is too short. So let's take a look at, I'm going to move the mouse around, see this point right here. Where is that? That is below kind of this low point of the body here and back here. So if I were to kind of draw a line right up there, where is that going to be on my picture? Somewhere in here, where back here. All right, so that means that this leg is going to come down. Out. That line, and trace it up. I actually want to be a little bit closer. It's going to come down to this point. The back toe is straight. There's no joints in this back toe. And then there are multiple joints in all the other toes. This one on top has 2 joints in it, 3 joints in the next one, and then 4 joints in the next one. So you can see that back toe actually just looks like a tube kind of wrapping around, but it's got 4 joints in it. And then, right, so that's a little bit of my preliminary drawing. Actually, let's place our eye. I want to look at the space between the back of the beak here and the eye. And roughly it's going to go in here. I then want to double check with the distance to the top, the distance to the back. Okay, that'll work for me. So roughly in there. Now, and so that's normally what I'd be doing with my non-photo blue pencil. And so those lines would essentially disappear for me when I start to go over that in more detail. I am now going to go over this basic framework and draw my bird in with more careful lines, kind of defining the form and the shape a little bit more carefully. So let me change microphones. All right. So actually, I'm also going to lock the manual focus. So it'll stay focused on the page there. All right. I'm going to draw kind of a hard, firm line up in here around the beak, this close edge of the beak. This edge of the beak, I'm going to use a heavier line and more detail than the far side of the beak. And that line is coming up. It is bending and then coming to the tip of the beak in here. This bird has very yellow corners of its mouth, which makes me wonder if this is a juvenile. Very often the edges of the mouth of a bird on young birds will be brightly colored because they're trying to attract the parents' attention to their mouth, and they want to get that snack before their sibling. And I just put a little bit of darkness down into that throat. We see a nostril in the upper part here. And take your time on the forehead. You notice that the feathers are kind of coming back this way. I'm going to kind of come back here and back towards this end. I'm going to just, rather than make a hard line right down there, I'm going to just put a few little flicks in this direction, making it look a little bit more like a softer edge. Little kind of angle change right in there, that'd be close to where its nape is. The eye, I'm not going to just do it in a round circle. I'm going to do an upper arc, a lower arc that kind of gives me something that is feels more closable. And then we're going to get a fine little area of feathers right around that eye. There's also, let's get this bag of feathers. Kind of makes my bird look a little bit sleepy. Under the eye. This area right in here is called the lores. And you notice there's sort of an area of different texture in that zone there. And so I'll put that in, and that kind of connects that eye with the head. I'm going to go ahead and put a highlight in my eye right now. I just drew a little circle in there. And then I'm going to fill in all the things around that circle. And then it feels like there's a little bit of light glancing on the eye of this bird. That line you see coming back from the edge of the eye, that is the top edge of the bird's ear patch, which is going to be a patch that's going to come down here and then connect into these bags. The bottom edge of the ear patch is not very visible on this bird here. I'll put in a little bit of a shadow in there. I'm not really seeing much more of that. Now, on the throat here, I want to come down to that angle there, out to the front here,
And I'm going to put in a little bit more of a hint of some fluffy feathers right in there. This bird, you're seeing there's a bump of feathers right in this zone here. That zone is these are the breast feathers right up here. So technically the breast of the bird is this area here. Sometimes that wiggles a bit when the bird is singing. There's a shadow that you're seeing along the bottom of that. Now, what about the back here? I'm going to come flat across here. I'm going to let some light, this line along the back be not really hard all the way through. So you see there's a little bit of a pale area in there that just let some sunlight kind of come in here. And then there's a pad of feathers on top of the wing here. This pad of feathers is what's called the scapular feathers in the bird. And I'm going to actually start on this end and work my way up to it so I can make these little kind of, there's going to be a series, I want these to feel like sort of loose, fluffy feathers. So some places I'm making kind of more of a little notch in. And then I'm going to give you a hint of this upper edge of it. Now the wing itself. The wing itself is divided into several different zones. There's an upper part of small overlapping feathers called the coverts, and the coverts are all up in here. There are the secondaries in here, and there are the primaries here. So let's take a look at what I do with the coverts. At first, there's this zone here. These are, so here's the covert. These are greater coverts. These are median coverts. These ones up here are lesser coverts. If you look really carefully, you can see that the median coverts are overlapping. So this one is on top of this one, is on top of this one. So one on top is here. These ones, the one on top is here. I might just have a little hint of that overlap, but I don't want to overdo it. Let's take a look at a few lines that are kind of prominent. See this shadow coming in here, this shadow coming up to here, but the shadow, I don't see it going all the way up here. A little bit more of a shadow here, a little bit of a shadow here. So I'm seeing some shadows in here, but not all the way up. When I squint my eyes, that line all the way up almost disappears. So if I overemphasize that, it's going to feel just a little bit too stripy on that wing. On the secondaries, I can see part of a feather up here. I have another feather here with a big shadow underneath it, and then there's another one here. I can see that shadow there, shadow here, shadow here. Yes, these all come up to here, but I'm really only seeing those edges of those shadows right through there. On the primaries, I'm seeing the back edges of these feathers in the dark brown all lined up, and then the front edge of those points up here towards this little patch of feathers. These are feathers that are coverts on the primaries. These are coverts on the secondaries. This big brown feather here is called the alula. It's actually attached to the bird's thumb. So it's something you will want to do at some point is to really geek out with wing anatomy. You want to get to the point where you can kind of look at a wing and go like, okay, these are my scapular feathers here. Here are my lesser primary secondary coverts. Here are my median secondary coverts with the reverse direction. And then here are my greater. Here are my secondaries. Here are my primary feathers coming up the front of the primaries, primary coverts, alula above that. Don't worry if you're new to this, that will come with time. And you'll hear this again. We'll have some classes actually where we'll just do a big deep dive into the wing and we review all this sort of stuff. You'll get it. Don't worry about having to learn all of that right now. So let's drop in that wing. And I'm going to start with not overdoing the feather edges on these coverts here. I'm going to draw in this feather here. And then there's just a little hint that there are some, this is made out of some feathers. And I put in just like, yeah, that one's on top, but I'm not going making it like a pine cone. And then let's see what's happening with this. I've got a little hint of a feather coming in here. I've got the next feather edge kind of coming here, and then I'm just going to fade that line going up in that direction. Let's drop in the tip of the alula. Sometimes the alula can even sort of stick out. It's going to be right in there. I have primary coverts coming down in this area. Now, the secondaries, there's going to be these feathers that get progressively longer here. I'm going to put in a big kind of clear feather edge here. And I'm going to put in on this feather edge a few little kind of details of that feather edge being feathery. See these little grooves, these little marks that I'm putting in here. I'm trying to suggest that there are these little cracks in that right in there. And then this other big feather sticks out below that. Move the magnifying glass. And this one, it's going to come up here. I'm going to give it a little crack. That was a big crack. Don't want to overdo that too much. And I might even put in a little bit of this shadow underneath this one here, just to pop that one up a little bit. Any other deep shadows I can get in here? Maybe a little bit of a shadow in there. And then on the rest of these secondaries that are coming down, they come down to about here. I'm just going to be not drawing lines, whoop, 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 all the way up. I'm just going to be suggesting that, hey, we've got this and we've got this. Look, there's secondaries all in this area. And then the bottom one, there actually is a nice little shadow on the edge of that. If you've got a photograph and the bird is holding still for you, you can do things like count feathers. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 primary tips down here. So what I can do is I can want to try to get one. I'm just drawing in the back edges of these feathers. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hey, I got it. And then there are the rest of these kind of curl around. And then the edge of them comes up. Maybe I won't get a few more, these primary edges, yeah. Upper tail coverts are these feathers here, and I'm rather than doing this, rather than having a line like that, notice what I did is I had a line on the top of it, and then for this line here, I was starting to come up this way, and I just kind of put in a few little kind of flicks in there that are suggesting kind of cracks in those feathers. The lower belly feathers on this bird are shaggy. Look, you can see all these frilly edges on that. And you see a little bit of frilly edge down in here. I'm going to come in here off this little slope. At this point here, I am going to come down. So I want there to be a little bit of a bump here. I'm going to come down and I want, notice by making these marks coming up, that's sort of suggesting that these are fluffy feathers. And there's that edge of it. Now in this, I'm going to make a few more kind of fluffy feather edges in there. Hard to see what's going on in there because of that shadow. But speaking of that shadow, let's drop it in. And my undertail coverts also in shadow. I'm going to leave a little bit of a light edge on those. Maybe I want this shadow to be a little bit darker in there. My tail sticks down here. I'm seeing kind of a wedge on the top of the tail. Back here, I see some other distant feathers on the far side of that tail. And now we get our bird leg and foot. So I am going to come down with a fairly straight line. My little thrush friend here, rather than scales going up the whole leg, has a big scale that goes up for most of the tibia here. A few little scales at the base of that. My back toe comes out, make it a little bit more blobby, sort of expanded at the tip of it. And at that point, that's where that claw attaches. Now I'm going to have my toes going up. Now there's a little lump here of plant stuff that is sticking out, obscuring part of the toe here. I think that if I include that, it'll just make things more visually confusing. So I'm going to leave out that little stick that is kind of coming up right in there because people will think it is part of the toe. And so you see I've made this toe have two joints. Because it does. And then the next toe with three joints in it is it's wrapping around there and kind of going to disappear. And our other toe, it's sticking up here and we're not really seeing what, it just is sort of it's more like a hose rather than something with all these kinks in it. My branch is going to continue up this way, and then we're going to just give it a little bit of a sense of there's another foot that is in there doing something, and you're actually seeing its back claw sticking off there. If you do put an extension of a stick on the far side of a bird, pay attention to the thickness where it comes out, and you also want it to line up with where it would come out. I'm going to put this little now I'm going to just reinforce a few of these little lines here to make it clear that this is the edge of this body coming down. Oops, no, you come this way. And there is an initial preliminary drawing of the national animal of the Ukraine. So this, it's a thrush. It's a thrush. So like the American robin, like Swainson thrush. So there's a lot of similarities between this bird and other birds that you can see around. We had a chance of looking inside an open mouth that's at a 3/4 view angle, and also took a close look at how to handle those feet and those toes. We looked on the wing at seeing where the feathers go, but not having to draw in every feather. A general rule of thumb is to draw less than you know is there. And that will help your birdie. But understand what's there. Understand what's there, and then you don't have to show everything that you know. Oh, I want this toe to be dark. It's in the shadow. Yeah, that was fun. So thank you for the suggestion of this bird. Let's go to just a discussion here. Are there any comments, thoughts, or ideas about this? And the way you can join the conversation is either use the raise hands feature or turn on your camera and just sort of raise your hand. I'm going to bring in Vultures. Vultures, I got a package in the mail to you yesterday. Took me a long time to kind of get that together, but there's a little care package coming your way. I'm going to add you into my spotlight here. Good to see you. And you can now unmute.
Yeah, hi. Well, I had a question. This is a very detailed drawing, but I'm always having problems with tails because how do you quickly handle tails? Because in the field, it's sometimes the tail does different angles, and if you draw it in, it looks pretty weird. So
I've had this exact same problem with
yeah,
tails.
sometimes it looks like the bird is looking this direction and is kind of standing like in a 3/4, and the tail looks like it's kind of coming towards you. And
Yes, no. That's a great question. And what I think we ought to do to answer that is maybe the next Ask Jack, we make it entirely about the tail. And what you're going to need to do is to find is to come you got to first of all remind me that the next Ask Jack is all about tails. All right.
Okay.
And bring a pair of scissors and a piece of cardstock paper. And we're going to actually cut out some tails. We're going to turn them at different angles and make some slight changes in them. Have some of them be flat, some of them be slightly canted. And there are some really counterintuitive things that happen with tails. And it wasn't until I got out kind of the card and made some tails and played with these tails that I started to go like, oh, and then how do I get what I now understand about the geometry of this tail down on my bird so that you're exactly right. You want it, if the bird is looking, its body is in a certain way, you want the tail to be in an orientation that makes sense with that.
Yeah.
I've totally had that same problem. I've looked through a bunch of my drawings and it's like, now that I've kind of figured out some of these tricks, I look at two of my old drawings and kind of go like, nope, 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 nope. Hey, that time I got it. Nope, nope. That time I got it. So we'll do that. Because
it looks weird sometimes if the bird is in profile, for example. If you draw just a little kind of like a line for the tail, and then you have the coverts coming and the tail going out, kind of it doesn't seem right. Yeah. So we'll do like the simple profile. We'll do then but then when your bird is at a 3/4 view, that's where the tail things really get interesting. So we'll first just deal with the tail flat side, top, and then we'll get it 3/4 view, and we'll deal with what if there's a notch in the tail. The foreshortening of a notch in the tip of a tail gets wacky. But if you have the little card, you'll be like, oh, I totally get this now. Okay, perfect. Sound good? So I don't want to put that off, but I think that if I kind of did a treatment of it here, it would just be like a little teaser, and you're like, I still like. But we'll do a deep dive on bird tails. Does that sound good? Sounds like a plan. Any cool things happening in your journal these days? I was on the other island, which is completely different. We have 8. Yeah, there are 8 Canary Islands, and I'm living on the kind of the biggest one. And we went to the one that is closest to Africa, so it's very, very different. Here it is very green, and on the north side, here there's some coastal scrub and a lot of rocks, but it's not. Please tell me you found a bee eater. A what? A bee eater? A bee eater? No. No. Okay. Well, someday there will be a bee eater. Yeah, I hope to find some bee eaters this summer back in Latvia. There are some there, but I found other cool stuff. So okay, I want to see. But let me. I'm going to get rid of my screen. Oh, this is going to be cool. Remove this spotlight. Yes. Yeah. Well, this is a Egyptian vulture. And these birds are extinct from every island except Fuerteventura. That's the island I was at. And this is the landscape it's very full of these sand tones. And there are a lot of goats there. It's the island of the goat, you could say so. And just these Egyptian vultures just high up in the air, just how do you say, soaring? Yes, soaring high up in the air. And I was very excited to see one on already the first day. So this is the bird. I kind of did a little list of the birds I want to see there, and this was a bird on top of my list. Also, so cool. Chipmunks. There are chipmunks. Oh, fun. and they're introduced. I think they're introduced. And this one turned out looking kind of cute. So I put a little heart. Because why not?
Why
and
not?
then these birds, also these are called
Really deep beak on that.
yeah, trumpet finch or trumpeter finch, like the musical instrument trumpet.
Yep. A nice 3/4 view on the head there on that beak. That beak really, hold that closer to us. That beak is really fitting into that bird head. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, and these birds make a very interesting noise. They sound like a trumpet. So when they fly over, so as I was very excited to see these, and then Fuerteventura stonechat. Yeah, it's an endemic there. So
oh my gosh,
I was. It's endemic and only also on not for Canary Islands, but for Fuerteventura. It's so very nice to see this.
Oh, look at this. This is, and wasn't that white part fun to put in on the tone paper?
Oh, more white. This way.
Oh, check this out. That's really exciting.
These are Roddy shell ducks, and they are also introduced from Asia, but they have a stable population here now in the Canary Islands. So very beautiful birds. And when they call, they sound like cats purring. So very interesting. Just like
weird.
Murr, murr. It's kind of deeper then, but
yeah. And just on the stone chat there, I love all those different angles. That the one from the back where it's like, so there's a lot of folks when they be drawing that bird, they'd be saying to themselves, I need to wait for it to turn around so I get the right angle on it. And you're just going with whatever the bird gives you, and love that. That's really cool.
Yes, and this is all on the first day. So, and then this one, it's not always you have an opportunity with a spotting scope to draw a yellow-legged gull. So I was geeking out on this, and a lot of more white. So very fun.
Yes. Yeah, those. Oh man, doesn't this make you? This really makes me want to go grab a tone paper sketchbook and just head right over to the coast right now. And I love the zoom in on the patterns on the beak, and this.
Yes,
and you've got the glare of the gull. It really looks mean gull. I mean, they have this angry bird's expression that is. Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And this was interesting. I drew this beak because it had a tone of pink in the tip of it, then red, and a tone of yellow here. So, and then these, what were these called? Shearwaters. These kind of, they were further out in the sea, in the ocean.
Yeah.
Catching some fish. And these are.
Go back to those shearwaters because, this is fantastic. We're going to have a workshop on drawing seabirds in flight.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that.
And because, this is right in there. That's awesome.
I'm really trying to draw more birds in flight. It's fun, but I'm still struggling a bit. And these are some I could not. I observed them from the car, but when I went on the search for these birds, they were already gone. They are called cream-colored cruisers. Cruisers, yes, and they run very fast. So I only saw them from a distance and did a quick sketch to just remember that I saw them.
Oh, that's great. Yep, just as much as you can. Get those. If it's just there's a little bit in your memory, that's better than That's
Yeah.
that's really fun.
And these, I think I already showed these plovers here.
Yes,
So
yeah, I love those plovers.
these are sand plovers. No, similar to semi-palmated plovers. I think you have those in the United States. And then also on my list was this Kentish plover. Kentish, yes, I think it's called a Kentish plover.
Ooh.
And this, it has a very beautiful tone of rusty. The back of the head is rust tone.
Fun. That's fun. And also the views as this bird is turning its head away from you are so cool. That 3/4 and then a little bit more than 3/4 where the beak finally disappears. Oh, that's really, really exciting. That's a great looking little bird. Plovers are just so darn cute.
Yeah. Yeah. I did this. It looks, the legs should be a bit more towards the center, yeah. But next time. And then this bird was a.
Wait, actually, before you go on from that, wait, hold on. I just want to interrupt you for a second. I want everybody to note the mindset that Vulture is exhibiting, right? That this, there's this very detailed drawing of the plover painted in. He's noticed that the leg should be at a slightly different angle, not bent around the axle about that. What did Vulture say? Vulture's just said next time, right? It's all about numbers game and doing more and more and more next time. That's absolutely right. That's the mindset that you want to have, where if something doesn't go right, you don't get upset about it, but you remember it and next time, the next one will be better. As Susan is saying, the next one will be better. And then there's the one after that and the one after that and the one after that. And that's how we get better and better and better, by having that mindset that doesn't go like, but just goes like, oh, yeah, it should be this way next time. That's great. That's terrific. So yeah, tell us about this with the leg band.
Yes, these ones, I'm really struggling with these shorebirds that have long beaks, small heads, and big bodies, like whimbrels and curlews, and all of those shorebirds. But the important thing, I wanted to get down the color rings of the bird, and I did not worry about the drawing that much, just kind of getting this information down. And I found out that it's ringed in Norway, and I wrote to the ringer, and there's actually a site where you can go. I don't know if it works in the United States, but you type in what colors were the rings. This is called a flag. It's not a ring, it's a flag. And then you type how many alpha numbers there were, and not numbers, letters, how many alpha letters were there, and if it was on the tarsus or on the tibia. And after that, you get an email which you can write to, and I haven't yet received an answer, but I'm hoping to get some useful and fun information.
And that's with your spotting scope, right?
Yes, that was my spotting scope, and it's good if somebody has ringed it. He probably wants, or she probably wants to get some information back. So, and
that's great. And
I would be so happy if I
would to citizen science.
Yeah, and I would be so happy if I was in Latvia now and I had ringed some birds with some color rings, and I get an email saying, my bird that I ringed has been found in the Canary Islands. So I'm hoping this could be useful.
It is really useful, and that's how we understand these migrations. That's great.
Yeah, so I just did not worry about the drawing. I just jotted down the place, how many birds, what were they doing. So all the useful information that I later wrote in the email. on this last one of it's not important. Some bird.
Yeah.
They were all kind of little landscape.
That's cool.
Okay.
And then you've got the wind direction coming in.
Yeah.
And then the group of birds, so you sort of see them. I see you're also counting them and then zooming in for a detail on those. Your understanding of bird anatomy is just exponentially growing. That's so exciting. And folks, notice on the little landscapito there, because the distant bank and the lighthouse is done in light pencil, notice how that pushes it into the background. That little sketch has a sense of depth to it because of the pencil weight and letting that be lighter. It'd be so tempting, because the lighthouse is cool, to put that in really dark and press there, but then that would have flattened out the picture. Oh, this is fun. That's really cool.
And so I tried to do very little detail on this one, just to give a sense that there is a lighthouse there. Yeah, but that's all.
Yeah. And so if you, for wherever you are, like in the United States, you could just do a search into a computer and you say report bird bands, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has a band reporting portal, and probably the Royal Society for Protection of Birds has another, and the
yes.
So those are
over here. We have, I think the website was called CR, like coloring, and then birding.com, and then you put down all the information. It gives you the country where it has been ringed and the email which you should write to. Easy.
Vultures, this is great. That's really fun. Thank you so much for the look into the journal there. That's going to be a that's really inspiring, really inspiring. And remember, next Ask Jack, remind me right at the start, you say tails, tails, tails. And we're like, oh yeah, tails. I might remember on my own, but I don't.
I should remind you, John Busby.
Oh, that's right. We need the two of us. We need to talk. We need to find a date that we can have. We'll do a full John Busby geek out session and then break down some of those drawing styles, because boom, that guy's got it going on.
Yeah, perfect.
I'll try to remember to get you an email off to you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Great to see you. Now I'm looking over at the gallery. I see Holly and Rebanto and Jack and Ann Chadwick. Actually, let me bring Ann Chadwick in first, because this might have something to do with banding birds. Nope. But still, you get to jump to the front of the line because you're involved with bird banding. Okay.
Yes, yes. No, and I know at Point Blue, we really appreciate when people report in that they've found one of the birds that we've banded, or ringed, as you say in Europe. So yeah, do report. That's great. No, I wanted to do a shout out to both Jacks, Jack, John Muir Laws, and Jack, young Jack, who I think is here today.
That's right. Let me bring Jack in.
Excellent.
Jack is here. So Jack, we're going to allow you to unmute yourself and bring you in on the conversation with.
Hi, Jack.
Hey.
So, hey, I'm doing the shout out because a month ago you asked about Mountain Meadows and said, what gives? We did all this work, we participated, did our homework, and we'd like to see some results. And Jack Laws said, well, I could get that done by February 28th. And sure enough, yesterday, February 28th, Jack says, let me show you what I've got. So you made it happen, and thank you so much. And I think we owe you a care package, so we'll be working on that for you. But I just wanted to say thank you so much. And we loved your artwork as well as everybody else's and your interest and participation. So well done, both Jacks.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Jack, thanks so much for lighting that fire under me. Knowing that I was going to be accountable to you made me push forward and complete that. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So Jack, what's happening in your journal these days?
So I was outside and I was kind of walking around. We have a big hedge of like forsythia in our backyard, and I see this weird thing. At first glance, I think it's a wasp nest, but I'm like, that can't be because it doesn't really look like it. But later, after I did the page, I figured out it was actually a praying mantis nest.
You found an uatheka. Oh, let's zoom on this. This is, oh, wow.
At first, I named it unknown muddy thing.
That's great.
But then afterward, I figured out it was yeah.
Oh, that is really cool.
And I've seen some like the same thing in other places too, nearby.
Mm-hmm. It's got such an interesting texture on that, isn't there? Yeah, unknown muddy thing. That's cool. That's great. And so I also like in the sketch notes here, the little drawing with showing yourself relative to the bush, so you see where it is. You know, that's a great way of recording all of that information. And notice that Jack is really, really conscientious with the I notices, I wonders, and it reminds me of. And that's making you a better and better observer. Wow. Now, if you are lucky enough to be out there right when they hatch, there's just tons of little mantids that will be coming out of that case.
Yeah, that would be crazy. And then I did it was in here I did Peregrine Falcon.
Oh, great work. Great work. Very good control of your watercolors there. You've really got, you know, when you want light values, you're able to create light values. When you want dark values, you're able to create dark values. So really good value control there, Jack.
And I don't know if I've showed you this yet. I don't know. But I found a bird nest, an old one from looks like last year. Did I show you this?
No.
In the same bush that I saw the praying mantis nest. And this was an old one. I had seen it before. But after getting all those tips and tricks from last Tuesday, I think. Yeah.
Oh, they are really applied well. The shadows, I'm agreeing with Susan in the comments. She's saying like, wow, you totally nailed the shadows in this. That's working so well. That's cool. That's really cool. Well done. When you go and you put in those darks, all of a sudden it pops, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Jack, that is great. That's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good to see you. And so there's a care package that Anne's going to put together from Point Blue Conservation Science for you.
Thank you.
And we've already got your address, and so that will be on its way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome, my friend. Let's see what's happening in Ray Bonto's journal. Ray Bonto, it's good to see you. And thank you for your contributions to the Mountain Meadows as well.
Thank you. So now Art was getting really impatient. For me, you were going rather slow. So I decided to go ahead.
Oh, yes. Oh, great values. I mean, everybody look at how the pencil strokes just wrap around the body here. You can really feel this three-dimensionally. Is this with a ballpoint pen?
Part of it with a ballpoint pen, and then it died, and I had to use a gel pen.
Ah, nice. And I like where you're deliberately pushing darker values. This just has so much form and dimension. Oh, and that the amount of detail that you chose to put in on the wing, I really like your choices. I can really understand the structure of it, and it's not overdone. I also really like that shadow under the bird's breast there. Ah, now let's see what's happening in Daffodil Land.
Yeah, I forgot to apply my white pencil, but still.
Okay, folks, notice how line variation is making that central trumpet really pop. See how Ray Bonto has those heavier lines around those key parts there on that bottom right one. Because those are heavier lines than the things behind them, it feels like that is coming out towards you. And also, I really like how you are not just putting in like, oh, a generic shape for a pedal. You're really looking at it from this place where I'm sitting. That pedal has this angle and this angle and this angle. Ah, oh, that's exciting to see. That reminds me that let me. I'm going to go over to my shelf. When I was just learning to kind of do nature journaling, I found a book by Claire Walker Leslie called Nature Drawing: A Tool for Learning. And it became my go-to book in there. And she has this one page where she is drawing daffodils. And you might be interested in checking this out. So let's see if I can spot it on the shelf here. And one moment. Oh. Claire, where's your book? Where's your book? Give me one more moment. It's got to pop up. It's well loved. It's worn out. And where is it? Oh, here it is. Here it is. So yeah, the book has now gone through several different printings, and I think this is from my 1980 copy of Nature Drawing: A Tool for Learning. So it now has a different looking cover, but the book is really good. There's some seriously good strategies in here. And check out, well, I'll bring you back on in just a moment. She does these studies of daffodils and uses that to really clearly, here we go. Look at that, right? Whoop. So just like you, she's letting some of the back ones be lighter line work. The edge of the thing that is closer to you, it's more distinctly drawn detail. The far side, less so. In her stuff, she can very kind of quickly cut to the chase of what are some really useful strategies for getting successful effects. So this is just a again, a couple pages out, a part of the page of Nature Drawing, a Tool for Learning by Claire Walker Leslie. And I thought with your daffodil drawing, you'd be interested in seeing, because these drawings were where I learned all these ideas about, like, oh, things that are close to me and things that are far away from me. I'm actually going to draw those differently. You guys now hear me talking about this stuff all the time. This is where I learned it, from Claire. And then some years later, in 2015, I got to meet her, and she signed my book for me. She also was a keynote at our first Wild Wonder, when we could do that live. That was some good times. Now I'm going to bring back Ray Bonto, add spotlight. And so what else is going on in your journal?
Yeah. So I found another daffodil that had fallen. So I decided, so it went apart.
Nice. That little bit of white blush in there on the tone paper, it just pops things, doesn't it?
And that's a bit of the dye. And that thing over there is a bit of the petal that got stuck to it.
Oh, so the yellow smear there is actual color from the daffodil itself, from the pollen.
Not from the pollen. Well,
From the petal.
Yeah, it wasn't really ripe, so as to say.
That's great. That's a very good idea. I was recently drawing an oxalis and did a little color smear from that. So on and spotlight. So when I was drawing this plant, this little box that's up in the corner there, that's rubbing the petal on the page and getting that little smear. That's fun to do. Anything else going on in that journal of yours?
No. Well, I couldn't really do much that day, but
I really like the effects you're getting when you are adding that little bit of white on. You're just able to pull out those highlights. Just pops it. That's great.
this is the inside of the where's it? No, up here. Is the inside of the stem.
Oh, so you did a stem cross section.
Yes.
Oh, see, now I got to bring on Ivea about that, because you're getting all botanical strategy, right? That's cool. That is really cool. So you're doing cross sections of stems and other parts. What do you think about that? Those techniques of describing plant parts?
I love it. I love the thoroughness in you, like looking at them, looking inside of them and taking them apart and seeing, is the stem going to be hollow? Does it have, pith inside of it? What does it look like? I love your strategies here of really looking in. Also, I like the way that you added your hand in there about holding the flower, because it gives a good sense of scale. As well, because sometimes when we put numbers on our page, numbers are important, but sometimes they can be hard to make sense of just by themselves. But when you see your hand, then you can immediately picture, oh, okay, this is the approximate size of this plant. So I like that strategy as well.
It's kind of like Jack's little figure beside the bush, showing how high the uotheca of the mantis was. There's something in there for relative scale. If you don't have to get out your measuring tape and say it's this many millimeters long. Here's my hand relative to it, and that's for those purposes. That's a great way of just adding in relative measurement.
Thank you.
Great. Hey, Ray Bonto, it's great to see you, and thank you so much for sharing that.
Good to see you.
We've seen several examples of really exciting stuff popping up on toned paper in Vulture's journal and Ray Bonto's journal there. For people who haven't had a chance to do that, it's fun. When you go to put the white on, wait, hold on, I gotta bring Ray Bonto in for that reaction shot. So Ray Bonto, your thoughts about putting white on? Super fun. It is, and it's addicting, right? And you kind of like, ooh, and then all of a sudden it just goes, and then you want to put on even more and overdo it, but you have to like, okay, I'm just gonna stop here. I'm just gonna stop here. That's some fun, right?
Yeah, super. It's like you draw something and then you, yay, gouache. Why not put a bit of white pencil over that to whiten it up a bit more?
Mm-hmm.
And then why not put a bit of colored pencil to do the tint?
There you go.
Super.
There you go. So you can do this too. You can do this too, folks. Hey, Ray Bonto, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, what's going on in your journal these days, Ivea?
Oh, I'm excited to share. And then also, I noticed that somebody named Alexandra has had their hand raised too.
I saw that too. She's coming up next. So Alexandra, you're up next. And I also saw that Holly had her hand up a little bit earlier, and I have not forgotten that. So we'll be looking for you folks. So we're going to first go to you, then Alexandra, and then over to Holly, and then anybody else that wants to share something cool. We want to encourage that. What's up?
So I've been trying to get better at birds because I'm scared of messing up, but how am I going to learn them if I don't mess up a few times? So
right, as Vulture said, right?
That's
next time.
So oh yeah, so okay, my restoration work. So I went in on last Friday knowing that it would probably be the last opportunity I'd get to do some work in the bushes before bird nesting season officially started, which is today. Although I've been wondering for a while now, with all of the changes in drought and temperature and all of that, is bird nesting season affected and does it start sooner? So that's a question I have. So I tried to draw the sky. I liked how the moon was sort of halfway in, halfway not. I'm guessing waning because the light was on the left. That tends to mean it's waning.
What day was this?
Oh, this was on Friday, the 25th.
All right.
Although I think that it was closer to being a half, although I think that I accidentally painted slightly too much of that edge off. But yeah, that was fun.
Now, I'll just sort of share you. This was on the 25th. I'll show you my, hey, Jack, remember when you said we're going to geek out on the moon? I've been making crazy moon observations. And so this one up here that was my 25th moon.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, I noticed the similar thing about how it wasn't quite a half, that it was just a little bit licked out of the half. Like somebody had just taken a little lick. So yeah, that's cool. I want to be part of the moon observation.
That's great.
And so I've been trying to get better about birds or burbs as that one really awesome gouache bird painter. I can't remember her name, but yeah, she goes by the name I Draw Burbs. So I was trying to write that down, house finches, lots of really, really, really loud house finches, Anna's hummingbirds, American robins, white-crowned sparrows. And then I saw the one with the sooty face again. And so I tried to draw this one better, where it has the weird bit, like it's almost like the feathers around the beak have tar on them. And so I was keeping in mind what you'd said about eucalyptus. Also, I looked and it looked as though they are flowering, those eucalyptus. At least the ones near where I am. So I have more questions about it, but at least I noticed where the bird was, and then noticed how the bird had been kind of playing around in one of the ceanothus, and then kind of hopped across the road with two of them, and how adorable that was. And then I also happened to see a flash of blue, and I know that it wasn't a Xerces since they're gone, but I wanted to pretend for a second that I was seeing a Xerces. And
Aw.
anyway, I saw this extremely pretty blue butterfly that was about the same shade as the Ceanothus, and then saw it alight on a Ceanothus and also at one point on a Toyon as well. And so it just made me so happy. And I tried to note that it was smaller than a red admiral. I had to look through my binoculars to see it proper. So that's why I couldn't get more patterns. Then for funsies, I've been playing around with doing the leaf prints, but I decided that once it got stuck to the page to do a tracing around it so that then I can officially measure the angles on this and get better at drawing them in freehand.
Cool. Oh, that's so much fun. So you started with a leaf print and then added the tracing around that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is strategy. This is cool. This is really innovative.
Thank you. So my hope next is I'm going to measure these angles, and then I'm going to practice a whole bunch freehanding it so that I can draw it quickly. My plan has been that on other pages, I haven't done it everywhere, but on other pages, when I'm trying to summarize what the day was like, I try to draw the target plants or the plants that I did right underneath the date. So that way it'll be easier to just look through and be like, oh, okay, this was, Cape Ivy Day, Cape Ivy Day, Cape Ivy Day, or whatever. So I just need to do that more consistently, but I want to get better at drawing them quickly. So that's what that's for. And then also some more birds that I saw. And this was important for me to see. I decided to play with the Merlin's Bird app with the listening to songs. And so my goal now is going to be to go through, I listed out the ones that Merlin said that they caught. So my goal is going to be to go through, listen to these songs, try to diagram them out, and then listen to the recordings again to see if I can hear them by myself, and then sketch them. But while I was standing still, a couple of little birdies began jumping through the main brush pile, and they had this crazy, first black underneath and then white on top, and it reminded me a lot of Jareth from the Labyrinth and his crazy eyeshadow. And so
that's Sting. Who was in that role?
Oh, that was David Bowie, I think.
Oh, David Bowie. That's right.
And then, but what I noticed is that one of them had this really light-colored.
And that angle of the tail, short tail, angled up, bold stripe above the eye. Wow. Do you have any thoughts on who this might be?
I think I was trying to look up some ideas. I'm still not sure, but I was thinking nuthatch, but I don't trust my own judgment because I don't know birds.
Well, with this, was it overall brownish?
Sort of brownish. I have a hard time distinguishing between brown and gray when it comes,
especially in the understory as they're going through shadows. But yeah. Also, as you're exploring this, check out the wrens. Check out wrens.
I'll check out
and have that be as something that you include in your differential diagnosis.
Thank you. I will. And the thing that really got my attention, though, was that one of them had these light-colored strands of what looked like dried grass in the beak. Oh. I'm even wondering if it was some of the stuff that I pulled up last week and left underneath one of the cowdy brushes so that somebody could use it for nesting. And so if that's the case, then of course that means that nesting's begun sooner. Last hurrah to go through the underbrush and take care of this one before 5 months go by without being able to.
I just love the way that you are. So for folks who don't know, Ivea is a land steward and regularly goes out to a restoration site and is taking care of the plants and the animals, and just sort of the way that you're thinking about these things, like then also thinking about the timing of the birds' nesting cycles and their needs. So even as you're like tearing out some weeds, you're then leaving resources there for the. There's just layers of stewardship and thought here that I really respect.
Last year.
Okay, be for you.
Last year we were 5 days past it, but I realized that there was this Cape Ivy going into the canopy of the Ceanothus. And I was like, oh gosh, bird nesting season goes from March to like August or something like that. That's 5 months where I wouldn't be able to do anything and this would just take over. So I was thinking, last ditch effort, no canopy for you.
That's great. That's great. And when we talk about kind of making decisions based on evidence, paying attention to the cycles of the seasons, to data like we get from Point Blue. It sort of reminds me of the way that Point Blue worked with rice growers to sort of figure out the timing of all sorts of different. What can you do to sort of maximize the wildlife values here? As well as taking care of the rice. Really beautiful thought. Hey, thank you so much for sharing those. You've been busy in that journal.
Thank you so much for listening. I love sharing.
That was fun. That was really fun. Alexandra, you've been really, really patient. Thank you for being with us here. I'd like to add you into the spotlight, and in just a moment, I'll allow you to unmute. And now you can unmute.
Hello, John. Been watching your videos, reading your blog for quite a while. Actually, got an idea of what turned into my field kit, or is turning into my field kit from you and found that out of all the media, I seem to enjoy using woodless colored pencils, probably more than anything. Just and when I use them, I use them basically sort of as a pastel, but in pencil form. Question that I had for you, that I've been trying to get into nature journal. I'm coming in more from the plein air art background, but obviously artists editings all the time, and this perception with nature journaling of having to accurately depict what you're looking at, that has really been. That has been a problem, maybe in a sense, blocking my creativity, and want to try to overcome that. Do you have any suggestions?
Yep. Well, for the kit that you use, any tools that you really like if you like those woodless pencils, they're great because they allow you can sharpen them and you get the fine point detail. You can also use them more broadly, and you've got a large area of tone.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no special toolkit that you're supposed to have. So it's the things that for you are the that you like using, and the second question. Can you repeat?
So yeah, and that for me, and this might not be a truly accurate perception of nature journaling, but my perception of having to with nature journaling, having to accurately depict what I'm looking at, I think might be interfering, might be that might even extend past what sometimes my attention span was doing outside is.
Yeah. So with what we're doing, so the first rule of Nature Journal Club is that there really aren't any rules of Nature Journal Club. And so like some people are, botanical illustrators, and they're just like really, getting in there and getting all sorts of little details about whatever it is that they're looking at. Other people are, you can sit down with your journal page and just even put some colors on the page. This is colors that represent how I'm feeling about sitting in this place at this time. And, so those are two totally different extremes, right? One person is like super detailed, and the other person is I'm more or interested in sort of like I'm looking at the birds flying, and I'm just going to let my pencil kind of trace the movement of what I'm seeing as I'm watching the swallows swooping back and forth. The idea is that it's not so much about what comes down on the pages of our journal. It's about using the journal to invite our brains and our hearts to look into the beauty of the world around us a little bit more, and maybe notice something that we wouldn't have otherwise seen, or remember it more vividly, or come up with a question about it. And for some people, drawing pictures is their first kind of avenue into it. For other people, it's writing words as is their kind of first avenue into it. Other people are very analytical and they want to measure things. You can do all those different things. And if you look at my journals, because I'm dyslexic and my spelling can be all over the map, when I was little, I was afraid of writing. And so my journals just became more pictures. And I think to this day, probably because of that, my journals just have lots and lots of pictures in them. But that doesn't mean that that's the way that it's supposed to be. And so don't feel pressure that what you do is not matching what you see other people doing. There's so many ways to do this for yourself. And I think Susan makes a really good point that if you are, plein air drawing and doing kind of landscape drawing and with whatever media or tools, you're doing the same sort of thing that we are. Some people really like to focus in on organisms. Other people like to get a sense of place. Other people like to write a poem about how they are feeling in this place, or write a poem about the movement of the birds. And all of those are nature journaling. And so it's a very, many people in this community, that people do it all sorts of different ways.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for joining us. If you feel comfortable and if you wanted to share something from your journal, you can. If you don't feel...
That's not mine. Yeah, but so I'm not sure what kind of evergreen tree this is.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw this on the hike, and at one point, about 2 weeks before, I didn't sketch. Now, basically, the entire tree was almost green, and then the day I didn't sketch, there was just one clump that was almost brown.
Mm-hmm.
Which was evergreen felt totally weird. And then there was another time when my dad and his friend, they went out mushroom hunting. I tagged along, and I had my journal. Writing is almost all in Russian. And types of couple of mushrooms maybe.
Oh, fun! So you're making maps and diagrams, and
yeah.
Oh, look at this! Yes, this is all of this is nature journaling. All of these angles, all of these ways to do it. This is wonderful, and how interesting to when you're there, say drawing that tree, it makes you notice, like, you start wondering, like, what's up with that little clump there? Why are you brown and you aren't, and you aren't, and you aren't? That's why we do this, because the process slows us down and we start to notice things that we otherwise would have just walked right on past.
Yeah, and thank you for those opening insights.
That's right. That's right. Because you did a journal page, if you have an insight about something, you come up with an idea or even a question. I shouldn't say even a question. I should say or a question. or come up with a question that you otherwise would not have done. The process is working. The process has slowed us down. And what we're doing is we're just, as we kind of go through the world in our sort of normal way, most people don't pay close, rich attention to the details of things that are happening around. But if I go and I put some of that down in my journal, then I can see through into a little bit more of the details of the world that I'm pacing through every day, and notice just a little bit more richness there. And then all of a sudden I'm looking at, wow, there's patterns of, these mushrooms are coming out, and that branch is turning brown on the tree. The details of what is going on around me that I otherwise wouldn't have seen is something that kind of can come into my perception and into my heart. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Really good to have you with us. I'd like to invite Holly also to join us. Holly, hi there. I'm going to allow you to, here, you can unmute now.
Okay. Hi. I know time is short, so I was going to share some other things because I found 3 nests and I drew one and all that stuff. But what I really wanted to show, because I remember how excited the last time young Jack was when you introduced the eraser, the edge of the eraser thing, and how much he loved that. And I thought, I did something like that once. So I did it. This drawing of a. Which way does it go? It's a spider. Whoops. Here you go. Anyway, forget my drawing. This is the important one. Comes from the book. So this person had you draw spiders and then take the eraser and then just zoom around, and it looks like a net. And I don't know how you would draw a spider web, but I would imagine that if you followed lines like that, it could turn into a web looking kind of thing, right?
Oh, what a good strategy.
Isn't that cool? So
I
that's
love
really
that. Oh, tell us what book that is. I don't know that book.
Oh, yeah. I had it in French, and I finally just found it in English. It's not in print, but it's a kid's book. It's called The Usborne Book of Art Skills.
Oh, that's delightful.
It's a cool kids book. So anyway, and I'll share my other stuff another time.
Great. No. If we have time, if you'd like to share something.
Okay, I'll just be real quick.
Take your time. We're people who are in a hurry. They've already dropped off the call.
Okay. All right. Well, so I went for a walk. I've been taking really long walks with my husband, and I'm sleeping better at night. I mean, this is just like really impacting a lot of areas of my life, just being outside more. And I thought, well, he said that we could find bird nests, and I'm just gonna look, and I probably won't find any, yada yada. And there are 3 nests. I just had to keep interrupting the hike to carry the nest back to the car. So I found 3 nests, and I tried to draw one of them, and it was full of bugs, so I had to draw really fast. So anyway, because the bugs were everywhere. So anyway, this is what I came up with. I tried to use your strategies. I'm like, I can't do this. These are all different sizes. How do you do this? But then I remembered once I got some stuff in there to darken in between the crevices.
Yes.
That was the thing that jumped at me, quickly then. But it was like, I think there was a lot of red-winged blackbirds around, and there were a lot of cardinals in that area. And what else do we see? I forget. But anyway, so that was and it's a lot of mud. It's an old nest, of course, so things are kind of falling apart. But it looked a lot like the robin's nest that I found when I was a kid, So I don't know. But anyway, that was it. And I used my colored pencils, and a little bit of ink and a little bit of and graphite. So that's really what I used. And then I used there's a really pretty color in Prismacolor called Celadon. Do you know this color?
No, I don't.
It's a really pretty, it's the same color as the Celadon, from the Ming Dynasty, those vases. There's that really earthy green. Yeah, it's that color. So anyway, called Celadon. But it makes I thought it's, and I use it in here, and I use green gold in there too. So yeah. So
Oh, that's really fun. And isn't it interesting how putting those little darks just makes the texture of the nest pop?
yeah, it does make it look more like a nest. Yeah.
That's really fun.
Yeah. So and then also, like how hard it is to get going in terms of thinking that you can draw something. Like I think, well, I can't draw this stuff like Ray Bonzo does, or Vulture with these other, because I can't do it fast enough. Or I can't. And then I'm sitting in my window, and there's these big fat mourning doves that are like plump dumped right in the feed catcher in my window. Right? I mean, they're right in front of me, and I thought, so I can't or I won't.
Ah.
So I said, I'm saying I won't. I'm going to do it.
Oh, see, you were brave. It takes courage to break us out of our regular routines and patterns, and just because I can't do something yet doesn't mean I can't do this.
Right. Yeah.
And the more that you do, the more our brains change and wrap around these new skills. So the signal that your brain needs in order to start like laying down all sorts of new tracks of neurons is you want repetition with effort.
Yeah.
And so it takes a little bit of work and discipline. And you want to think of it as a practice. I was actually talking to my daughter about this morning. She was practicing her violin, and we were talking about when you're practicing, you're also practicing practice. You're learning, how do I kind of get myself to kind of come into an activity again and again and again, and to work with it in a way that's going to bring my brain along. And so you can, as you're doing this, also think of what you're doing is you're training your brain to do deliberate practice. And that is, and so that when you are getting better at drawing, you're also getting better at practicing, which is huge.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to say something that you do. You're probably aware of it, but maybe not. It's really lovely. You do this thing where you're sketching and we're watching you. And of course, we have this perfectionistic stuff from our childhood or wherever, from the culture. And I hear you say something like, oh, that's a little bit too, that stripe's a little bit too whatever. And you go, but that's okay. So that really kind self-talk.
That's for next time.
It's really, and it's like a warm wash for people who need to hear that. That's what we need to say to ourselves, is like, it's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to be perfect.
And it is okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that it's worthwhile kind of going back and seeing some of these old lessons to even if the style isn't something that you want to have for your studies, is just to go look at, so you can find them online, old recordings of Bob Ross.
Oh, Bob Ross.
And just to listen to what Bob has to say about, like, Bob Ross is a bodhisattva.
I don't know what it
is there kind of helping us sort of show the path of being forgiving with yourself and having fun with it and embracing if something doesn't go the way that I wanted it to, that's for next time, or I'm gonna turn it into something else, and that's okay. I'm gonna make it into a tree. I mean, if we can make more mistakes that we make into a tree, this world would be a much better place.
I know. But just real quickly, so what I did was I said, okay, I'm gonna draw these mourning doves, and so I started, and here's my first. So they're like,
those are the shapes. Those are the shapes.
I know, but
those are the proportions. Yes. Oh, and look what you did with the mourning dove sitting on the word mourning dove.
Yeah, I had fun with that.
Oh, what a delight.
Yeah, so that was cool, and I just want to show one more picture. And this is instead of tough love, we have dove love.
Oh,
Dove love is 36 degrees.
dove love. I love dove love.
And then and then I decided this was probably an Olympic sport for mourning doves. Like, sitting. How long can I sit with their feet? They'll sit there for an hour.
That's great. And to let your kind of sense of humor come into these things, when we laugh with what we're doing, that's why Ivea and I are constantly trying to make bad puns or good puns or just puns. No value judgment about puns. But if we can kind of get ourselves kind of to while we're journaling to snort, right? We just did something right. That's going to make us do it again and again.
Yeah. I did. I went for a lot of neurofeedback because I had a brain issue, and that's one of the things that that specialist told me was that drawing was going to help me more than anything. So I just started drawing. This is a long time ago, but I just started drawing, and I'm I'm at whatever level I'm at, but it's like I'm glad I never stopped. I just kept going. That's the thing, that some people just think that it's this like thing that you attain. It's just no. I just always just doodling and trying. And what do not even as I just doodle a lot with lines, and it makes me calm. Yeah, I think some people don't get that, but it's really helpful. So anyway. Yeah,
that's so wise. That is so wise. It's not. There's no destination that we're going to. There is no masterpiece that you're going to make.
Yeah.
And this isn't leading towards some point where ta-da, and then you've gotten there. What we're doing is we are embedding ourselves in a process for the sake of that process.
That's it. It's being. It's learning how to be instead of just being a human doing. That's how I
say that again. Being a human doing.
Yeah. I think I view my earlier life as a human doing. Like I just did. I belonged to this organization, and they expected me to do this and this, and there were just like all of these expectations. And I finally said, no, I need to stop all that for a while. I just need to figure out what's right for me. Who am I? And so the drawing really like shaved stuff down for me. Drawing and swimming. Those are my two big things. Drawing and swimming. I swim like crazy. So and walking. Yeah. So and spending time with my grandkids. I just I don't know. I just feel like my life has become super rich. Super rich.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
and to realize that we get to do whatever we want with this brain of ours. We're not confined. Joe Bowler's book Limitless Mind is, I think, a really kind of useful take on neuroplasticity. I recently got a chance to spend some time with Akshay Manujan, who's part of our Nature Journal Club. You've probably seen drawings of bugs that he's done. And Akshay came over and he spent a little bit of time with us and my daughters. And when he came, he brought with him juggling balls.
Oh, cool.
and why did he bring juggling balls? Because he's decided that, just to find like another track to, like, he's got this brain. What are you going to do with it? So he decided, I'm going to learn to juggle.
Yeah.
And just as he decided to, to learn to draw, I'm going to learn to juggle. He became a professional dancer. And is now just like a swing dance We got to see him swing dance when he came to on our Tanzania expedition. He was on that trip, and we got to see him Gargi swing dancing. So they're constantly trying to like get some to embrace some part of a learning curve that is a challenge. And then what he discovers is that just it only takes a little bit, but a little bit on a regular basis. And he's just sort of reorganized his life to try to create and support habits that he wants to have. And so now he's like doing all these tricks, like we're doing the one hand and like all these different things. They're like, they can make him go like this. And so he's like doing all these little tricks. And my daughter's like, wow. Right. So now we also are practicing our juggling every day. And
that's great.
and it's just that with this brain of ours, we can make it do, you can make it do all sorts of things.
Yeah. I had to, I was knitting for a while. Knitting's very hard for me because I transpose numbers. I have a really hard time with, and it's all about numbers. It's all about like, how is it going to fit? It's just like with just all this stuff. So I was a pretty good knitter, but then, I got arthritis. And that's not so good. So I literally had to stop knitting with, it's been the last 3 months. So that's when I just jumped, and I jumped the wrong direction first. And then I found it here. First, I jumped into like acrylic pour. I was doing like 4 acrylic pours a week, which is so bad for the environment. But it was just like, I was throwing myself into this thing. And after 2 months, I went to visit my son up in Vermont. When I came back, I said, I don't want to do that anymore. I just don't. So then I Googled, and that's when I found you. It was like so perfect. That was so bang rang. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's just like, really cool for me. Yeah, so thank you so much.
Hey, I'm delighted with your mourning doves and their Olympic sit. That was so congratulations on diving in with your first birds. The first birds are free. What's going to happen next?
Yeah, thanks so much. Take care. Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Let's see. That was really fun. This is really fun. I'm so happy to be here with all of you folks. Is there anybody else who had a comment, thought, or idea? Hey, Susan. I'm going to add you in. And hold on, we can allow you to unmute. And I think you can, there you go.
Yes. Hi. I feel like I'm like sharing like every time, and I don't want to be like taking up too much, but it seems like we've got time today. So yes,
we're good like that.
Yeah. So just a little bit. I'm really trying to to get out there and do my nature journaling in the moment instead of bringing, sort of like what I've been doing prior to this is, just taking photos and then journaling afterwards, which is great for some things, but I want to be doing it. So that's what a lot of things I've been showing recently. So I got out, we had another big snowstorm on Friday, got out on Sunday when it was like slightly warmer, brought my nature journal, brought my binoculars, my watercolors, brought all those things, got to the park. I had left my bag of pencils and pens and water brush at home. So instead, I collected some things to bring back, and I sort of enjoyed making some observations, and I just sort of remembered some things, and I collected. So I'm going to do a little Nancy Pido, but there's this little park that's got a little pond that's all iced over right now. People were ice skating on it, but it was like we had just had a big thaw the previous week, and it was up to like 40 or so that day. So I don't think I would have trusted them to be on the ice, but they seem to be okay. But and then there's a little sort of wet, soggy area in the woods near there that gets a lot of ferns and things in the rest of the year. So all the sensitive ferns are all gone, except that their fertile fronds stick up. They look really weird looking, and if I didn't already know from having seen them before that it was the fertile fronds of a sensitive fern, I wouldn't have.
Oh, wow.
Opportunity to.
And then that's a zoom in on that one little.
Yeah, I was interested in the structure because ferns are just so interesting and they're so fractally and it's always fun. But yeah, so I actually pulled one of the fronds up, and this is not in proportion, but there was a couple inches sticking above the snow and about 12 inches in total of stem. So that was fun. Yeah, it was really like they tried to get like some of the sort of look of the shadow. They have a little hole around them in the snow.
Oh,
yeah.
that's cool. That's cool.
And
I wonder what causes those little divots.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. So this had been the snowstorm 2 days prior, and it was like 6 to 8 inches or so. And then the last 2 days up to that point, it was like just barely above freezing. The snow was just maybe melting. So I don't know, but I do notice that seems to happen around a lot of things. And so I suspect that perhaps like slightly warmer temperature around there causes melt. I don't know. I was curious. I'll have to investigate more. See how snow melts. But it's already melting pretty fast. But then I also grabbed there are some nice larches by the pond, and so I picked up some of the broken twigs from there and brought these. I drew these at home afterwards, and was very nervous to try and do the cones, but they came out pretty good, I think.
Oh yeah, and you also dove in doing the cone 3/4 view. So mad props to you.
Well, I was thinking about your sort of your cylinders with lines going around. So I drew the little oval shape, and then I drew the circles of the various rows of scales. And because the cones were at different angles, I got different angles, and then I sort of overlaid the scales on those to get the shape. So that was fun. Yeah, so the shadow came out pretty good. So that was fun. Yeah, I don't know. It's
also fun how that shadow just pops it up. It makes it feel like this thing is just plonked down on. There's two things that make this look like it's actually really sitting on the page. One is your value range, so you're really kind of going from light to dark. And then those shadows also just pop it up and make you sort of see that, oh, that part, that's sticking up there. Oh, that's neat. That's really fun.
Yeah, I figured as long as I actually had it on a piece of white paper to look at, I may as well get the shadow in. It helps show the 3D, and I can actually see what the shadow looks like, so I don't have to make it up entirely. So yeah, that was fun. So that's all I got for today.
And for the whites on the cones there, on the one where they've got the double, those lights, did you add the lights in later with a gel pen, or did you just leave those light and put the dark in around them?
I just left them light. So I think I washed over with lighter sort of, I don't think it was like yellow ochre, and maybe mixed some other stuff in there for that. Very lightly, I just did over the whole thing. And then I came back in after that was dry with a darker color and went around them. And to be honest with you, I did not think it was going to work. It looked really stupid looking when I had just had the outlines in pen, and I thought, well, we'll start here, because I was really trying to get the darks in there. I was remembering your discussion, I think when you were talking about mushrooms, and this idea of when you're seeing the gills straight on, you're seeing the shadows in between them, and when the gills that you're seeing on the side, you're seeing the light of the gills. So I'm thinking, okay, so like trying to focus on the areas where the scales are pointed more toward me, I can see the dark around them a lot. And then in the area like toward not so much, but like toward the bottom of this one, where all I'm really seeing is the edges of the scales, and I can't really see the gaps, and so there's less dark in between them. So I'm really surprised that it worked out as well as it did, but it did seem to work. So
it worked. It worked.
Went around all with a very thin brush, and yeah.
So yeah, what you've got then is you've got so notice that what you're doing is you are taking an idea from one thing and then applying it in a novel situation, and that shows you that like you've really made those concepts yours. That's fantastic.
Thank you. So that's fun. Looking forward to more. I will not forget my pen or my brush next time.
Yeah. I used to do that all the time. So now I have one set of supplies that sits in my studio, and I have an identical set of supplies that is actually already in my kit, so that I know that all I have to do is like grab my kit and I go outside. Otherwise, I'm like, I can't believe that I left the fill in the blank on my table, because I'm constantly doing that too.
Yeah, I should definitely start doing that. That'd be good.
Susan, thank you so much. Those cones. Those cones got game, and and pushing those darks in there. You really the makes those woods feel lovely, dark and deep.
I will have to say, in regard to sort of the broader discussion of like drawing and painting things and feeling successful or being afraid to start, I always feel like there's things that where I look at it and I feel like I don't know how to do it, and like I maybe can think how to start, but I don't know how I'm going to make it work. And I feel like there's certain things I feel very comfortable drawing, like certain kinds of insects, certain flowers, cats, whatever. I don't have a cat a lot, and then there's other things like these cones I've tried to draw pine cone before, and it's quite difficult. And these are like arch cones that have that very thin sort of, scale that looks a little bit different. And I'm like, not sure. And so, but the thing is that what I notice about myself is that usually the things that I'm happiest with the results are the things where I had no idea how to do it because I'd never tried it before. And I had to figure out something in the moment to make it work. And I think it's part of it is a lack of pressure, because I'm feeling less pressure on myself to make it good because I know that I don't know how to do it. And so I'm more inclined to then be happy when the result is something identifiable. But also I think it's like when I don't already have an idea in my head of how to do it, I'm forced to look at the thing and make observations about how it actually looks, and that translates. So like, how did I get the cones to look really, really thin and papery, and not like the scales, not like a nice fat solid pinecone scale? And I think what it came down to was the ones on the edges, you can see that they're very thin, which I observed by looking at the actual thing. And I think that sort of then causes you to interpret the whole thing that way. But like, so I think basically in short, try drawing stuff that you have no idea how to draw, because if you're like me, you might actually be happier with the results than drawing the things that you think you already know how to draw.
That's, how can you get yourself into a beginner's mind framework? And that is very, very profound. And if I could tag something onto that, for the things, so then you say like, so then why should we be taking these classes that are like, here's some strategies on drawing waterfalls? Because what you do when you do have strategies for something is then when you get out there in the field, the trick is then not to draw the waterfall that you know how to draw, right? The waterfall in your mind. But how can you look at this? How can you still make yourself really look at that waterfall instead of like, oh, I've got a waterfall trick, I'm going to do that. But I know how to draw birds. Got that back line, cut the circles. You can do that, right? But I want to get myself to look at this bird and really pay attention to what is going on here. That's a great reason why at starting drawing anything is just to first take some time and just talk to it a little bit and say, like, I noticed this, I noticed this, I noticed this. Why do you have that? Like, oh, that kind of reminds me of this. And I noticed this, and I noticed this. And look at you, you've got that going on. Oh, wow, it's all a little papery on the sides, a little skinny on the sides. I think I can see that. So where you're actually articulating to out loud things that you're seeing. And it don't have to be anything profound. It's just like the little things. And then when we sit down to draw, you've got all these fresh observations in there. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, and thank you because when you explain, when you talk about a lot of these classes, you're saying, well, we're drawing this very specific thing based on this very specific photo. But when you're talking about it, you're talking about the general strategies that you're using, because you've never seen that photo before, and neither of the rest of us. And so you're talking about your process. So like, talking about like the exact shape of the negative space at the back and where the head meets the back and everything. I've already forgotten what that shape was on that exact Nightingale that we drew. And I don't know how to do that again. But that's fine, because the next Nightingale, well, probably not likely to see a Nightingale anytime soon, but maybe. The next Nightingale I try to draw, or the next other bird I try to draw, is going to have a totally different shape, because the bird is shaped differently or it's in a different position. But I'll remember that strategy of paying attention to that and how that helps to get the overall shape right. And so, yeah.
And that's also, that's why I don't like these drawing tutorials. I've sometimes opened books where they'll say, like, draw a circle, draw a line through here, draw a line 3/4 of the way down from that, and then 2/3 the way down from that, and then we're going to line up these different features, and that's how you draw a raccoon face. No, that's how you drew the raccoon face when I was doing this, but all the raccoon had to do is do this, and then all those different features are at different lengths. But if you can unpack that, I want to pay attention to where is the nose relative to the level of the eyes, that could be something that I can look for, and that helps me get the raccoon looking down this way. Like if this is the tip of my nose, right? Right now, my nose is down here. All right, or I do this, now it's over there.
Oh, then you have to look at perspective, because the nose is long enough that it depends on what angle you're seeing it.
Yeah, but what are what are the sort of general things I want to be paying attention to that then also help me translate that onto paper?
Yeah. Well, on things like if we do like birds, when you're drawing the shape that the underside of the bird's upper beak makes, and extending that line through, and like that bird turns its head, that line's going to look different. The bird lifts its upper neck, or a different kind of bird look different. But that particular bird, its eye is always going to be in a particular configuration relative to that line,
right?
Which will change as the bird changes its head, changes its direction, but it will still be a certain distance away, and that kind of thing. And if you can pay attention to that bird and see how that looks, but yeah. So point is, I think that it's having the general strategies are good, and also having trying to draw lots of different kinds of things is good, because then you get practice at actually looking at stuff, which is great.
That's also for me kind of a fun thing about Tuesdays, because when I get here, I have no idea what we're going to be doing, right? It's like, it's Nightingale Day, okay, and that's fun. That's fun. Although I do know what's happening next Tuesday.
Yeah. So
Tales with Vultures.
We're gonna get some cardstock.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you. So our looks like our 1.5-hour workshop is now 2 hours and 45 minutes. So we got that going for us. For you folks who are still with us, thank you all for being here. I am going to go make a little bit of lunch, because I've just noticed a little bit of hungry starting to creep up on me. And I want to thank everybody for being here, sharing your thoughts, your ideas, your artwork. And I'm also just so grateful to this community. Avea, you totally got my back in these workshops. And you've ever noticed, like, sometimes I'm a little bit late to the call? What's happened is just before that is I've gotten a telephone call. It's like, Jack, it's Tuesday. You know what time it is? Like, right. So you really helped me out, and you also your thoughts and feedback with the community just so rich and supportive. Dear friends, be well, be safe. Let's take care of each other. Let's take care of this beautiful planet, and let's extend the circle of our care beyond the people. See if you can just push out, sort of like, there's sort of like, for some people they'll take care of themselves, some people that, like my family. What I'm going to do to sort of a meditation for today is to encourage people to think of pushing out that circle of life that is that which we respect and care for beyond where it is right now. And you can push that out into, that could be for other people, that could be for other living things, that could be for a place, that could be for ideas, but to see if you can sort of bring into your circle of care just a little bit more. And I think that that might be a good exercise for your heart. Thank you, my friends.
Thank
Be
you,
well.
John. Thank you.